Today, we're getting into something that I've been thinking about for a while, and that a lot of you have been talking about too, and that's the real cost of OTA dependency, the commissions that quietly erode the margins, the guest relationships that you build but you never quite own. You hear so much about building a business on rented land. And I always remember Andrew McConnell talking about this over and over again. We hear it from Humphrey Bowles from Truvy. He's been on this podcast talking about exactly this. And it feels like there's a growing sense right now that the industry is finally ready to do something about it. So today's guest is Sarah Stahl, and Sarah runs Market Movers, a company called Market Movers, and she stepped into a role of VP of Marketing at Lake.com. And this is a vacation rental platform that has just launched a subscription model as a direct challenge to the commission-based structure that most of us have built our businesses around. Sarah posted about this on LinkedIn last week, and I'll put a link to Sarah's LinkedIn profile so you can go take a look at that post, because the responses tell you something about where the industry is headed right now. But what makes this conversation particularly interesting to me is the history. I've been in this industry for nearly 30 years, and I recognize something in what Sarah's describing, not because it's a new idea, but because versions of it existed before the OTAs arrived, and they changed the rules. The question I really want to get to today is what makes this moment different, and whether in moving back towards this direct connection between guests and owners, we actually risk losing something the platforms actually gave us. Now, that's a controversial comment, but I think you'll find Sarah's perspective on that is worth sitting with. So without further ado, let's go straight over to my interview with Sarah Stahl, the VP of Marketing at Lake.com. So I'm super delighted to have with me today Sarah Stahl, who is the VP of Marketing for Lake.com and the founder of Market Movers. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a consulting side hustle that I had going on for the last year.
Okay. Before we kick in, I'm just going to share something with you that I did a bit of an experiment this morning, and this will bring the listeners into what we're talking about, because over the last 6 months, I've gone totally over to AI. Everything I do is talking about AI, and I can't stop doing it, and I'm geeking out a lot. And one of the things we've been talking about over the months is the difference between SEO and AEO and GEO. And AEO being answer engine optimization and GEO being generative engine optimization, which I think we might touch on. But my experiment this morning, because you're working for Lake.com, I just went to Google and I just posted on Google Lake vacation rentals. And I can't say I was surprised, because I've seen Lake.com come up before every time. And because now you go to Google and you get this AI overview. And that means AI has gone out and had a look for an answer to your question. So I went Lake vacation rentals, and it came up with popular rental platforms include Vrbo, yes, Airbnb, Lake.com. So I just want to position this right at the beginning of this conversation, because we will come back to it. Because the second little experiment I did was go to ChatGPT. And I went to ChatGPT, and my prompt was, I want a lake rental in the US for a vacation. Where should I start looking? And I got the same answers. Airbnb, Vrbo, Lake.com. So that's my positioning, and that's my opening, and I just want to welcome you. And now you know what we're talking about.
Perfect positioning. Now you're getting into our passion and what we do every single day.
Just start by introducing yourself, Sarah. The majority of people that I speak to on this podcast have got into this industry in very similar ways. They've had parents who had an Airbnb, or they bought their first property and then they built up a company. But your story is a bit different. How did you get into short-term rentals?
Absolutely. So I call myself a marketeer, and I've been a marketeer for a little over 15 years now. I started on the consulting side for quite a while, just got my hands dirty in social media marketing and web development is really where I got my start. And when my husband and I left the military about 7 years ago, we literally had to start all over again. And I accidentally got a job as a communications director for our local chamber of commerce. And I was so excited. I'm like, I got this. I was in my 30s, and basically it was what I would consider my first real job.
Oh,
And
you're gonna have to step back and tell us what you did in the military.
okay, I was active duty Army stationed in Europe for 3 years, and I was in
Oh,
finance.
wow.
So when I got started in the Army, I've always had this burning passion within me for business. And so when the Army said, "What job do you want to do?" I was like, "Give me something related to business." And they put me in finance. And so I was responsible for paying the soldiers in Europe.
That is a really important job. Whereabouts were you based?
Stuttgart.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Stuttgart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Germany. Spend a lot of
Oh
time.
my goodness. I mean, that's a great location. That's where I learned to snowboard in the Swiss Alps.
Yeah.
Got to travel all over Europe. Great beginning of life. That was between 19 and 22.
Oh my goodness, not that long ago then. So,
Yeah.
oh, age 19 and 22. I'm thinking
Yes.
2019 and 2022.
Oh, no, this is 2001 through 2005
All
time
right.
frame.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you did the military, then you got your first job in
Yes.
tourism.
Yes, I got my first job at the Chamber of Commerce, and the way a lot of rural towns work, because we moved to a rural lake town in Alabama, and I didn't know this at the time, right? I've learned all this backwards. A lot of tourism departments fall under the Chamber of Commerce in like rural communities. So within 3 months of me starting as the communications director, the tourism director retired. And so the president of the chamber came to me and said, "You're really good at marketing, so you can handle tourism, right?" And I was like, yes, I can. So I immediately was like, "No, I can't." And I velcroed myself to every tourism leader that would be willing to act as a mentor for me. And I just learned the industry really quick. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got from a competing tourism director who is still a good friend of mine, she said, "You've got to know where your money's coming from. You've got to understand lodging taxes and where your money's coming from." So the more I dug into that, the more I got this really interesting picture of what's happening. And lodging taxes fuels a local economy. That's what is legally supposed to be used to reinvest back into a local economy. I learned that our local economy didn't want to reinvest those dollars that way. The local governments like to hang on to that money, and they have their own ideas about that. And as the tourism director, I took that role very seriously, and I started to push back on that because I'm like, these are our customers who are expecting us to fill their rooms.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was all hotels. That's all anyone cared about was hotels. And I thought that's what tourism was. And I thought that's where, from the lodging tax perspective, and I thought that's where all the lodging tax came from. It wasn't until I left the tourism side of things and I stepped into the short-term rental side of things where I was like, why isn't there the same level of support for short-term rentals as there are for hotels? So with the contacts that I had made over 3 years with the state tourism officials that I was like, teach me everything you know and how to be a good tourism director, I tapped back into them when I became the director of marketing at a startup treehouse resort. And I was like, we pay in. I know we pay in. Now it's time for you to support us. And you know what? When you use that verbiage with tourism folks, they're like, yes, you have. I'm here to help you. And so that was one of the reasons there was a couple pillars in that role where I was able to help grow the treehouse resort so quickly. And that was one of them because I knew of all the tourism assets available to us. And I just went after them because I'm like, I'm going to use these first before I spend any money.
That's just a super background to have, isn't it? You understand the inner workings of
Yes.
where this money is going, and then having the financial background as well. That's got to be the whole package.
Oh, that's an interesting point. So I learned in the Army that's when I learned a very painful, valuable lesson of don't mess with people's money.
Yeah.
And so pulling that full circle to your comment is I have learned how to make sure people are making money with their partnerships with me because I don't want to mess negatively with anyone's money. I learned that the hard way really young.
Mhm.
And so I mess very positively with people's money. And that's how I'm able to do the things that I'm able to do.
I think that really is such a good perspective on it. Okay, so retreats, was that? Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Retreat resorts.
Okay, so
Yes.
what's happened since then?
Okay. Let me give you a little context. Because a retreat resort, I credit to what the owners allowed me to do there, use my expertise. They just said, do your thing. And I actually didn't know about the short-term rental industry at the time. I was stepping in from the tourism side and with my marketing skills. And the first thing actually that came up in the interview was, we've got 6 tree houses currently on Airbnb and that's it. How are you going to help us grow? And I said, I actually don't know. This is my honest answer. I said, I actually don't know, but I could tell you from a business perspective, you probably don't want to be renting your growth on another platform. Like I knew that much. Like, why are you so dependent? And one of the early things I saw, because I consider myself like a reader of the cultural tea leaves, if you will, was that creators were causing people to move. So customers,
Yeah.
right? So I was noticing creators were getting a lot of customers' attention. And I thought, you know what? Let's have a couple of creators here. So I'm a big hiker in the area and I know a couple of big outdoor creators. So I just used, again, my personal connections with people. And I was like, hey, would you be willing to stay here and do some content for us? And you can stay here for free and just see how that goes. And so there's about 4 or 5 early folks that I knew in the region that had big followers. And what started to happen immediately is every time one of them stayed and posted, we had at least 5 other creators out of nowhere reach out and say, oh, we'd like to partner with you too. So I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. And I immediately created a system of creators that came through the property. We had 1 or 2 on site every week for 2 years, which generated all of the shift from. So in that 2-year process, we went from 600% dependent Airbnb dependent tree houses to 21 units, a full spa, and an event space. And so we were building out the entire time. And in the end of the first year, we were at 90% direct bookings. And I'll tell you right now, I'll be the first one to say, I didn't even know the importance of the shift. In fact, at that time, I was getting pushback from the owner. We've lost a lot of our Airbnb traffic. I really feel like we need to get that back. And so I was like, okay, because I thought I had done something wrong, right? That all these people were. And when I realized I had done something right was actually was it November of 2024? So we were HostAway platform users for the whole 2 years. So HostAway asked me to come to their very first Hostella in Miami on a customer success panel. And so I'm on stage talking about what we've done. And afterwards, there was a line for 30 minutes of hosts waiting to talk to me. And as a marketer, I'm like, okay, there's something here. So that was the moment I realized that what I had done was actually a good thing because my boss had been telling me, all this Airbnb traffic has dropped and we need to do something about getting it back. Even though we were getting 90% direct bookings and our spend had almost doubled per night because we didn't know at the time about margins. And so that's why I talk so much about margins, because there's a difference between getting an OTA booking and then you're paying for those margins. And then when you're getting the direct booking, you make more per night per stay.
So you really got dropped in and learned very quickly that OTA dependency was not a good thing.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. I've been banging this drum for so many years because I came into the business back in late 1990. Last century,
You've got
last
you've
century
got some
stuff.
great wisdom to share with us.
Last century stuff. And then started a company in England that was marketing Ontario cottages to the British market. And then subsequently
Interesting.
moved to Ontario and bought multiple lakefront cottages, which is why the whole lake.com thing is really so close to my heart, because I know this is really where it started, is all our
Yes.
lakes in Ontario. And I know that your founders are Canadian.
They are.
And have that experience too. But we started with my property management company. It was before HomeAway was just starting, and HomeAway had that connection between owners and guests. And you could have information. You just spoke directly to the guests and you got their personal information, and it was a lovely way of being. So we were marketing on, there was a site called Cottages in Canada. My business partner ran the very first listing site called Cottage Link. He started that in 1996. Back in the days where people sent in actual photographs.
Yes.
Actual photographs, and then he copied them. And then, of course, we went through the advent of Airbnb and getting all excited about online. I remember going to the Cottage Life show in Toronto and meeting this guy who'd started this company called Canada Stays. And he said, online booking is the future. And I was saying, no, nobody will ever want to do that. And then we went through that Airbnb phase and then came back to direct booking. And by the time I sold the company in 2022, we were back at 85% direct booking. And because I've been in there at the beginning and then went through that OTA phase and realizing that you're giving away so much control. And I mentioned in the introduction that Andrew McConnell, who was the founder of a number of companies in the short-term rental field and used to talk a lot on the podcast before he moved out of it. He used to say, and I think he was probably the first one said to say, you should never run your company on rented land. And then we hear from Humphrey Bowles from Truvy, who
love Humphrey,
writes the most amazing blog posts and LinkedIn posts about this. He's super passionate. And then there you are doing this same passion, but you came into it without all that background. That was a long, rambling way of congratulating you on doing this and being with it. But I want to move on now to where you are now with Lake.com. And you posted something recently that I thought cut right to the heart of the issue, that having more bookings, getting more bookings, doesn't automatically mean a better business when the cost of acquiring them just keeps eating into the value underneath. I believe that's what you said. Can you unpack what that actually looks like for somebody who thinks that high occupancy means things are going well?
Yeah, so you're talking about my Jerry Maguire moment from this morning. I'm not going to steal the office fish, but I might lose my mind in a memo. That was I think this really goes back for me. I will come forward in 1 minute. I think this really goes back to what was put in my heart and what I was made for. I've always had this heart for business, and I never knew what to do with it. And something that I've said to my husband for over 20 years and not even knowing why is behind every business is a family. And when a business fails, a family fails oftentimes, if we want to get into statistics. And when a business succeeds, a family succeeds. So that's just really been in my heart. And I think that's where a lot of my passion around this comes. And now that I understand the impacts, the business impact that OTAs have on someone who's investing, I think short-term rentals folks are some of the biggest and most passionate investors that we have in the marketplace. And what I hear, we talk to hosts all the time. I have talked to hosts so many different capacities in the last 7 years. And I always hear the same thing. We don't know how to market. We don't know how to market. They know how to do everything else, and then they struggle with the marketing piece. At Lake, what is so important about understanding and why we're shifting to the subscription model is understanding that, you can have B&B or any OTA, fill your calendar up. But once you start chipping away at what we saw at Retreat early on was, yeah, we could have all these OTA bookings that fill our calendar, but we're making less money because it's harder to communicate with the guests. So we're not able to upsell to them as easy as we should be able to, for one. Two, once we pay, depending on if it's 10 to up to 25% with some OTAs, what is your margin? And that was one of the questions that I would ask the owner a lot as I was learning at Retreat. I'm like, he'd want me to put these coupon codes out. Go ahead and put a coupon code out and try to get people in here. And I'm like, well, what's your break even? You're making money putting those coupon codes out. And he'd be like, don't worry about it. Cause I don't think he knew. And so then when you add in coupon codes and OTAs and taxes, and you start to add in all your line items, the most important question is, am I breaking even or making money or losing money on these products, if you will? And a lot of hosts, I have come to realize, aren't aware of that. They're just trying to get their calendar filled. And I get that because I've been with the owner who has invested a lot of money day in and day out. And I just got to get a cash infusion in here. And I understand that. But at what point do you stop focusing on the cash infusion and start looking at the long-term growth of every night that's no longer pickable because you've sold it for a cheaper price?
Yeah, great point. I want to come to a little bit of tension here in this whole direct booking part. And I get the financial side, but OTAs brought something real alongside those commission fees, but they held owners accountable. You had to respond within a certain window. And reviews were visible. I go back to before live reviews, so it was a big thing at the time. But if your listing doesn't match reality, guests could say publicly and your ranking suffers. But when you move to a model where the platform is stepping back from that role, who holds owners to that standard? Is there a risk? Whatever you say about the OTAs, they did bring some discipline. So is there a risk we lose some of that?
This is a really interesting question. I love how you didn't prepare me for it at all, because you're going to get a really rough answer. And let me challenge you a little bit then with just my perspective of things that I have seen, because this conversation has actually come up internally with the Lake team, right? Because as an OTA, we understand where we stand. And we understand that we're balancing the guest experience and the host experience, and making sure that we're sending guests to a place that we would want to stay ourselves. So the thing I would push back on, just from what I know of hosts, they're passionate business owners. Passionate. Are there bad apple hosts who are out there? Absolutely. We've actually recently kicked one off of our platform, right? So that is a thing that happens. Is that the bulk of the situation? I don't know if I would agree with that, just because I've met and talked to so many hosts, and this is their livelihood. This is their profession. This is where their passion lies. If you're talking about regulations, that's a whole other thing than experience. But really, from where I sit, the hosts want their businesses to be successful, and they want to be the one that everyone talks about, and they want to give these exceptional experiences.
There was something years ago, I think, and maybe it's still around. Cottages in Canada has been a listing site. They don't call themselves an OTA. It's a listing site. They've been around for 30 plus years now, I think. And I know from my experience with the cottage owners in my area that a lot of them will advertise on Cottages in Canada. But I've heard from guests who say that times when the owners don't get back to them within this specified window. Do you have at Lake I think I'm asking, do you have any methods of holding them accountable? Or is it more of just an education piece for them?
Well, we are the middleman. So we have processes in place for every booking that's made. and we communicate with guests. So as soon as there's any issues whatsoever, we know of it.
Right.
Like we are the operators of the communication that's happening between the guest and the host. And so we have run into a few areas where usually it's like tech related, whether the messages are being pushed properly through the API, depending on who made an update that day.
Yeah.
Usually it's like tech related, but we can see all of what's happening between the host and the guest. And we monitor that to make sure that there's healthy communications, and we step in anytime we feel we need to support, whether it's the host or the guest.
Yeah.
And we've done so many times and will continue to do that.
Oh, that's a good answer. Really good answer.
Okay.
I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but we're doing this full circle thing back to
Yeah.
where I was comfortable back in the early 2000s. But you're not the only platform making this move right now. There's others in the industry trying similar things. It does feel like there is a shift, and I love this shift towards subscription and this direct connection model. What are you doing at Lake to get it to stand out in the field? And what do you think the earlier attempts at the model haven't been able to crack?
First of all, I'd like to address your comment about there's other people that are trying to solve for this right now, which tells me they're listening to the hosts, right? Like business is simply solving a problem for a profit. That's what business is, right? And so when there's a shift because there's a problem, right? And the businesses that are stepping up to solve those problems are all trying in their own way based off of their own expertise. I think the differentiation we have at Lake, you brought up at the very beginning, is one of them. So you found Lake in your natural search, both on an LLM and on Google. And, there's a study that David, the CEO, put out recently, and Lake is actually showing up 47% of the time in an AI search, and Airbnb is showing up 42% of the time. So we're like just barely beating them right now. Will that last? I don't know. Internally, we talk about that, and I'm like, they got a much bigger budget than we do, right? So we're gonna use this as we have it, because that's one of the differentiators. Is David is an incredible technical SEO, GEO, agentic search expert. He has made himself that through his career, and so we have that edge. We also have, I actually just hired the very first marketing team member on my team, and she's the social media manager. And between her and I, we are travel content experts, I would say that. And we know how to position ourselves in a way that the traveler's compelled. So between those two things, and then of course we have Stephanie, she is running a lot of the brand direction and the customer support from a strategic level. So we just have all of the key elements needed in the industry covered very tightly and from a high level of expertise. And I applaud anybody who wants to try to solve this problem for a profit, to create a business around an issue that is causing way too much harm, in my opinion. And that's great for them. I just think we're going to do it better.
That comes me to a comment that David made on your post, and he referenced the book Simplicity, and he drew a distinction between product innovation, which new features and capabilities, and pricing information. He said Lake.com is hoping to achieve both. So what do those innovations look like? What does the product innovation piece look like?
So the product innovation, and this is from me, David might have a different answer from his perspective, but from my perspective, we are solving 4 industry problems all at the same time. So with the subscriptions, we immediately hosts move to 0% commissions. So with the annual fee, that's the first thing. And right now, I'm not even going to say the number because I don't know when this is going to come out. People are going to be so jealous if they even hear what the number is right now. So I'll reserve that. But we know where we're at in the marketplace. We know that we're early. We know that we're asking people to trust us. And so the price is appropriate for where we stand in the marketplace right now. And so what they're getting is the pathway to direct booking. So they're unlocking a link on their property profile page on lake.com. Now, that something I like to say is that doesn't guarantee direct bookings because we're still marketing your property and it's their choice. Back to your point, who are they trusting? Are they going to trust the host or are they going to trust us as the OTA? That's the customer's choice. But we felt it was really important to at least provide a pathway of more sustainable growth for the hosts that are trusting us to be able to say, hey, the option is there. If you've got a great business and somebody wants to do business directly with you and they trust you, go for it. You'll get your payment immediately based off of how you've set up your payment structure. You'll be bypassing us altogether and you're just paying that subscription. So it doesn't necessarily matter to us which way a guest chooses to book. We just thought it was equitable to give that pathway because we're also a business, right? It is a very delicate line of we're a business and yes, everyone wants free direct bookings, but we can't help support that for free. The best we can do is offer this very clear pathway.
Yeah.
And then the final is our portfolio subscribers actually get highest amplification of marketing. So we actually, in our marketing, we're pulling from our portfolio subscribers first to promote, our premium subscribers secondary to promote, and our basic users, if you will, tertiary through our promotion. So we're actually prioritizing our hosts based off of their subscription level. And with portfolio, you actually get a custom story featured on our site with backlinks. And so between all of that, the marketing alone almost covers the cost of the subscription right now.
What about property managers? Are you aiming more at hosts or property managers?
We work with a lot more property managers actually because the biggest shift that's going on right now is for the last 18 months, because David and Stephanie were learning as well, right? So they're actually experts in building a two-sided marketplace. If you know about their history, they did this for voices.com for almost 15 years, and then they ended up selling their portion of that company and then taking a sabbatical and deciding what to do next. And then Lake.com came of that. So there are experts at two-sided marketplace, but they've been learning the industry as they build as well. And what David learned 18 months ago is nobody's going to connect to us unless we're partnered with the PMSs. So he has been building for 18 months the systems to partner with the PMSs. So since October, we have been announcing our PMS partnerships. They've been coming on board. So we're partnered with the top 6, and Lake is now a channel manager inside of the top 6 property management systems. So that has opened the door in a really big way to property managers.
Yeah. Important question, because I remember when, as a property manager back in the early part of 2000s, when HomeAway built out and began to become Verbo, that really property managers weren't that important. And then the same with Airbnb. I think it is that there's a lot of property managers out there who are interested in direct booking. And
yes, we have I would say we have a good balance. We have property managers that are coming in through the channel managers, and then we have a lot of individual hosts with some exceptional one-off properties on lakes all over the world. We actually recently, Interhome connected with us, and they make up a large portion of our current inventory. And Interhome is Europe's largest property management company, and they have properties all over the world.
Coming back onto the lake.com, it's quite a niche. How much do you abide by that?
Welcome to the inner communications of our team on a daily basis. So one of the challenges that I've had is finalizing the brand stance on that very topic. And like, where do we stand? Because we have to, if we're going to own the lake narrative, we have to have a line in the sand here, right? So we actually this week just settled on the tagline, stay close to the water. Because we have a lot of properties in the system. And as I look through them, I'm like, how close to the water do we need to be? So we've settled on within 15 minutes of the water or a body of water. So we have a lot of beach rentals, we have mountain lake rentals, we have riverside, creekside rentals. We have a lot of rentals with pools. So stay close to the water within 15 minutes is where we're planting our flag in the sand in order to keep it open enough
Mm-hmm.
to have a healthy inventory, but still stay true to the narrative that we're trying to own.
I love that because with my company, we were waterfront cottages, and it really limited. We
Oh,
just really limited us. We
yeah.
we said, oh, we will only take properties that have direct private waterfront, and it did limit us. And
Yeah.
then once, because that seemed to be what everybody wanted, but once Airbnb came
Hmm.
into the picture and other properties were popping up that were not directly waterfront, but they were proving popular. And we realized that, yeah, if as long as there's water somewhere.
You know what I love? If I could for a moment, you just said something that really sparked a thought. And that is this idea that there's nothing new under the sun and everything comes back around. Bell bottom pants, right? They're like in again, right? Everything comes back around. And where we started talking about AI, we always feel like, what's the next big thing that I need to know about to stay innovative? And here we are again. And where we are again, to your point about people wanting to get out, is a lot of Airbnb properties are in the cities,
Mhm.
right? And so we're focused on rural, the more outliers, because that's where lakes tend to be as well, because there's research coming out saying 1/3 of travelers are looking to bug out, plug out in a rural destination. So we're not focused on that city. We're focused on the rural.
Yeah, that is great. You bring so much to this. As we've been talking,
Oh,
and I'm just thinking you bring the financial knowledge, the tourism, the passion for OTA independency and
yeah.
marketing. And there's so much that you touched on in this conversation that I think I would love to sit down with you over a
Oh,
coffee or something and really go
I
into
would love
this.
that. I would love that. That sounds like something we need to get on the calendar.
Exactly. So tell us more then about lake.com, who you're looking at, because I know this announcement about the subscription has just come out. Hopefully, with this, we're going to get it out to more people. For a property manager listening who runs, let's say, 20 properties or so, they're still heavily dependent on Airbnb and Verbo, perhaps
Mm-hmm.
to a certain degree booking. But what's the honest case for them making a change, or do they need to make a change at all? Or is it just something else that they bolt on?
Yes, not necessarily a change. Understanding the complexity, they probably are already using a property management system. So the first thing I would say is, are we connected to their property management system? If we are, we're already in their channel manager. And for more personalized support, because it's always like a challenge to add software and to get to know software, we are here to help any property manager. We have a lot of resources to help simplify the processes, but we're also very personable and approachable, and we're happy to support. But I would say the easiest thing for a property manager to do is first make sure that we're in their channel manager,
Mhm.
because being in that seat myself, I would not even ask anybody to add another channel if they already have a system that they're using.
So,
To the
what about independent hosts?
independent host, it's pretty simple. So when you go to lake.com, there's an option to log in. It's like a one-click login to create through your Google account. And from there, you're automatically put into a welcome onboarding sequence that walks you through how to connect your property and how to get everything set up. And again, that gives you direct access to our team, who is always ready to support, but no one's ever doing this on their own.
Mhm.
We're here to help make the process as seamless as possible based off of what your individual property growth goals are.
That's tremendous. So, once again, I'm going back to Canada Stays kicking off back in 2005, 2006, I think. And I actually worked with Canada Stays and wrote their content, the
Oh,
content,
nice.
the education piece for their owners. So I remember this well. So how are you going about educating your clients, your owner clients?
That's a really great question. So, a couple of things. One, there's a lot of education already in place because David and Stephanie, they have spent the last 18 months focused on the host.
Yeah.
So, we have quite a bit of educational pieces. As the technology shifts, some things have gotten a little outdated that need to be readdressed. And from a marketing perspective, right now, I've only been at Lake for almost 2 months. Right now. So they're still onboarding me. They're still teaching me. I'm
Yeah.
still learning the company side of things to figure out, okay, how do we need to start addressing messaging as we move forward? So we're leaning a lot right now on the earlier pieces that David and Stephanie have already developed. And then we're reassessing from there based off of what our hosts are telling us. So everything that we do at Lake is based off of what our hosts are telling us.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was thinking that you're going to have a mix of hosts. You're going to have those who have got the Airbnb and the Verbo
Mhm,
background, so that's
mhm.
almost having to do a conversion with them because you've got to teach them a different way of doing things.
It's true because a lot of the questions that we get are, how do I get more visible on the platform? Right? Because people are conditioned to doing do these top 10 things and you'll show up better in the algorithm, right? And so that's not how we operate. We operate a little bit differently than that. There's things that you can do that can make us feel more confident to promote you, but we don't have an algorithm game going on at this time.
So how does somebody get featured? Is that
Mhm.
just an additional payment or what?
So right now, at this moment, I would say, because today we just launched the subscriptions, right? For the subscription model, they get featured based off of their subscription level. We prioritize. So we don't promise anything. We prioritize just based off of the volume of subscriptions that we have, but we do guarantee the feature story to our portfolio subscribers. So we just go through, and there's a couple of things. Those who have good ratings and already have good reviews, because we pull reviews from PMS systems as well. Those who have great photos and those who are located in markets that we're seeing on our Google Analytics that are most searched for, right? Like travelers are searching. We already know the markets. We have currently about 40,000 people that visit the website every week right now. And so we know what pages they're going to and what lakes they're interested in and what areas. So we're like, in marketing, we're meshing all that together to tell a story.
So I'm thinking if I've covered everything. Okay, this has been such a great conversation, Sarah. But before we finish, I just want to talk a little bit more about AI. I know that you are very comfortable using AI. What do you
Mhm.
use? What's your platform of choice? And is there anything you could
Mhm.
share with the audience about your use of AI that you think, particularly in marketing, that you think would be useful to them?
So if you would have asked me this question about 2 weeks ago, I would have said ChatGPT because I have been a ChatGPT user since beta. So I think, what are we, like in 3 years now? 3 years old? And I'm like, I'm never leaving ChatGPT. I love it. Two things happened. One, I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl with Claude's Super Bowl ads where we will never have ads. Where I think that spoke to so many people.
Yeah.
And they did it. The marketing magic between their operations and marketing team is something that somebody should do a case study on. Because what happened is those commercials during the Super Bowl were like, oh, yeah, I don't want to be on a platform with ads. Everyone's always trying to get away from ads. So two things happened that made me shift my attention to ChatGPT and Claude. So right now I probably have 50%, 1 foot in ChatGPT, 1 foot in Claude. And ChatGPT launched ads. I personally haven't seen an ad yet, but what I have seen and heard is that there are no analytics whatsoever attached to their ads. How that's considered a product, I don't know. Yeah, and that's a whole other thing I think you wanted to talk about as well, how ChatGPT has no analytics, right? The only analytics that we have, and this is important, so important in marketing, we can't just put things out there. We could put things out there and experiment, but we need to see what the results are and adjust. We don't need to just keep doing that. And so I'm always trying to figure out who's got the best analytics to give me insights so that I'm not continuously throwing darts in the dark. And the fact that ChatGPT came out with ads with no analytics and they already have no analytics, I'm like, and then Claude said they are not going to, I don't know if that's a forever thing or not, but they said they're not going to do ads for at least right now. And so between that and a friend of mine said, I really think you should look, I know you use ChatGPT, but I think you should look at Claude's reporting features. So I have been trying to make this mass marketing brain, if you will, to connect all of our business KPIs to all of the marketing activities and being able to link where the marketing activities are contributing to those business goals and where are they are falling short. I think Claude, I think it ended up being like 5,237 formulas. In 20 minutes, it created that dashboard for me. And it has 7 tabs. I'm still working through it because I keep finding errors, and then I have to put it all back in a cloud and tell them, but it fixes it. And so I spent a half a day on that. And
so what are you using, Sarah? Are you using Claude Code or Cowork or just general chat and projects?
I'm just using Claude. I'm just using Claude projects. I'm using Claude just like I use ChatGPT, but I use it more for all of my, any data reporting, any presentations, any training I have to present. It organizes it so well, so quickly, and it even is like visually aesthetic. ChatGPT can't do that.
Yeah, I am, as of this morning, cancelling my ChatGPT subscription. And that is, I've been where you are for the last couple of years, and it's just, and I just realised that I spend 95% of my time in Claude, and I still use ChatGPT for doing things that would perhaps use Claude tokens that I can use. I don't want to run out. I can do that in the free version.
Yes, and where Claude is a little weak, and I think it's just because I've spent more time in ChatGPT, is ChatGPT knows my voice very well. Claude does not know my voice, but what I'm assuming is because it's an LLM, it's a matter of time and me talking to it until it happens.
Exactly.
But yeah.
My Claude now, no, and I've only been really in there for 3 or 4 weeks. It's got my brand voice. It's got It's got my brand voice. Good. It's got a ton of my solo podcasts. It knows my voice. So
nice. That's awesome.
And I've just created skills and. Anyway,
and you'll never see an ad. You'll never see an ad.
That is perfect. No, I'm glad to hear that perspective from you. So this has been fantastic conversation. Before we wrap up, just give a little bit of a spiel about Lake and let people know where to go and find more information.
Yeah, lake.com is where we are presenting stays close to the water worldwide. And it's a place for hosts who want to do things a little bit differently and have a property that's a little bit different and that's near the water. And we want to be in a great partnership with you and help you grow.
Fantastic. There will be a link to lake.com in the show notes. And if people would like to get hold of you personally, Sarah, where would they go?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you find me Sarah Stahl on LinkedIn, feel free to connect and reach out to me there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been such a great conversation.
Thank you.
So that was Sarah Stahl. And I have to say that conversation went in directions I didn't entirely predict, which is always a sign that something real happened. It was such a great conversation. What struck me most was how naturally Sarah connected the financial discipline she learned in the army, which was all about don't mess with people's money, to everything she's doing now at lake.com. And that is not a marketing angle. It's a genuine operating principle. And you can hear it in how she talks about margins, about hosts not always knowing whether they're actually profitable, about the difference between a full calendar and a healthy business. Those are the conversations I was having with property owners 25 years ago. And a lot of operators are still not having them clearly enough today. But it's the accountability question is the one I'll keep thinking about. Sarah pushed back on it quite thoughtfully, I thought, and I think she's right, that the vast majority of hosts are passionate, committed operators who want to do a good job. But the systems still matter and the guardrails matter. And it was reassuring to hear that Lake is actively monitoring the communication between hosts and guests, not just stepping back and hoping for the best. That tells me they've thought about this more carefully than the question might have implied. I was also really interested in the AI piece at the end. Well, of course I was. The fact that Lake is showing up 40% of the time in AI search results compared to Airbnb at 42% is a data point that's really worth sitting with. It says something about how David Ciccarelli has built the platform from a technical SEO and GEO standpoint. And it's a real reminder that the way guests find properties is already shifting faster than most operators realise. So if you want to find out more about lake.com, the link is in the show notes. And if you want to connect with Sarah directly, she's active on LinkedIn. Just search Sarah Stahl and you'll find her. And if today's episode prompted something useful, maybe a question about your own channel mix, a thought about your own margins, maybe a nudge to look more carefully at what your OTA dependency is actually costing you, I'd love to hear it. As ever, you can reach me directly at heather@vacationrentalformula.com, and I will always respond. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of your businesses, and I'll see you next time.